Hey, boss, do me a favor, lean back for me.
A Ring doorbell camera at the Kazi home in Sugarland captures the scary moments. Their 29-year-old son had just been shot in the stomach, nearly killed.
I can see the videos. It really shocked me. My son is sitting in front of my door, bleeding after the shot.
It was the price his son had paid for walking just a few feet from his own front door on Silas Creek Court. He's lucky to be alive.
On that day, God saved my life. I can't.
The man who shot and nearly killed Ozair Kazi wasn't some random criminal out on bail reform. It was someone who had known Ozzy since he was 11 years old. It was this guy, his next door neighbor. But even though it was Ozzy who was taken to the hospital with that painful gunshot wound, look at the initial police report from Sugarland PD. It calls him the suspect, the guy on the stretcher, and the guy who shot him, the victim.
God, these take so long.
That guy is Bart Greider, and the story is about to get a lot more complicated because he's a retired Sugarland police officer, and it was Sugarland police who had responded to the shooting. Did that color how police handled this rare case of neighbor shooting neighbor? Ozzy's family hired Dolcefino Consulting to find out.
I want the justice. So simple. I don't want any favoritism.
And we now have the body camera video, hours of it, of the officers who responded that night.
All right, brother?
How are you?
Good.
How's that baby?
Run like a weed, man.
Yeah. She's pretty.
I appreciate it.
You don't often hear cops make small talk with the guy who just nearly killed someone.
You need routine. How does that hurt? Right?
Mark! What's going on? Okay. What's up, brother? How you doing? How's morale with PD? I heard it's pretty bad right now.
My most important thing is you okay? It is what it is, and we'll deal with it when
You're very
we're gonna deal
professional.
with it.
I respect that.
Glad to, I have a lot of respect for you.
Imagine being Ozzy's parents watching it all.
How to cover up the incident, that's the way I look at all the videos.
This one officer acts like he doesn't know who the shooter is on his body camera. Greider doesn't respond with his name. He responds with his old badge number.
What's your name, sir?
8079?
But we had video from the Kazi family's Ring camera. Listen to what that same officer said just a few seconds before.
Bart, you good?
Bart seemed fine for a guy who had just pulled the trigger on his next door neighbor.
Have you guys checked out by medics yet? No, but I'm fine. So can I have a cigarette now?
I'd have to check on that one.
Well, I figured that's why you're taking them off.
Hey, I'm a motorcycle cop, okay?
I know.
You've seen news stories of neighbors hating neighbors, but that usually brews for years.
Police say the victim's wife told them they've had ongoing issues with that neighbor.
Not these neighbors.
He used to come over before we were friendly when he was in high school.
We talked in our driveway about his kids, and we used to talk all the time.
We used to talk in a smiley way, and many times we had some occasions, our community occasions, I invited him. And I gave him the invitation card, join us, and things will be, just have fun together.
Bart had known Kazi since he was 11, watched him grow up, and also knew he suffered from bipolar disorder.
And plus, Bart knows my son very well. He's not a stranger. He knows my son has some mental problems.
He's such an innocent kid. We never had any kind of complaints from his school.
Have you ever had any problems with him in the past?
Just nothing physical.
There was only one incident anyone mentions. 3 years ago, Ozzy went into Bart's backyard without asking to try and quiet his barking dogs. Ozzy is sensitive to noise. And sure, he should have asked first, but what kind of neighbor makes this threat?
He said, if I have a gun, I can shoot your son last night. So he was ready to shoot anybody.
But on the night of August 1st, Bart Greider did grab his gun. And by his own words, it was only because of this. He saw Ozzy come out of the house, slam his own door, then walk across the street to ring a neighbor's doorbell, and then walk back to his own property. Then Ozzy started crossing the retired cop's driveway to walk down the street. Greider's truck was blocking the walkway. And just because of that, Bart Greider points the gun at him. He admits it on police body camera video.
Has he ever threatened you or made any threats toward you?
He said, I'm cutting across your property. I said, well, get off my property.
He pulled out a gun, and he threw his holster across the garage.
I said, get off my property, man. I'm slowly raising the gun.
And he said, you're trespassing, get off my property.
So I'm holding the gun. He sees the gun.
Like a deer in headlights, I kind of froze there for a second. I didn't know what to do.
And then Ozzy claims Grider runs up and puts the gun up against his temple.
I didn't want to die, and I grabbed the gun. I moved my right ankle behind his ankle, and I pushed him to the ground to try and get the gun away from him.
Whatever happened in those few seconds, Ozzy got shot, and he called 911.
You were walking across the driveway?
Yep, and he said, get off my property. And he shot me.
And he said, you are on my private property, and he starts shooting. I cannot believe that.
Ozzy claims Grider tried to shoot him in the head.
And then he pulls the gun to my face again, and then he pulls the trigger. And a bunch of hot air from the gun blows on my face.
Someone else called 911 in the seconds after the shooting, Bart Grider's daughter. And listen to what she said when the dispatcher asked if her dad had been drinking.
Is her dad on any drugs or alcohol?
No, he's not drunk. He was just...
At the scene, she admitted, in fact, her dad had been drinking, but he admitted it too.
How much you drink today?
You need beer?
Yeah.
Probably 3 or 4.
Okay.
Since 4 o'clock.
3 or 4 beers, and you think you still was working on your last one about 9:30?
When all this happened, yeah.
Or when all this happened, okay.
So there wasn't much excuse for the Sugar Land police not to wonder if alcohol played a role in this shooting. There were beer cans, cases, and bottles all over Grider's garage, the crime scene. And he's not shy about his love for beer. Just look at his t-shirt, Save the Planet. It's the only one with beer. Yet Sugar Land police never collected any of the evidence, never conducted a sobriety check.
I can believe only thing, he was drunk. And this is the negligence of the Sugar Land police. They never take any test for this blood test.
We noticed something else on the hours of body camera videos we looked at. There were things Sugar Land police clearly didn't want you to see or hear on cameras you paid for.
Are you hot? Yeah, but give me 1 second. Actually, I can turn it off. I'm ending recording.
Is that because the guy who had just shot his neighbor used to be one of their own?
Are you hot? No. It's Bart? Yeah.
Since that night on August 1st, the Kazi family has been fighting for justice. And Bart Grider's own words may now come back to haunt him. He pointed the gun at Ozzy and shot him, when even he admits Ozzy Kazi hadn't even threatened him.
Has he ever threatened you or made any threats toward you?
No.
Why did you believe that there would be a confrontation between you?
It wasn't that I believe there would be. I just want to protect myself in case there was.
He said it again in the police department's training room when they were reenacting that night.
Was he acting violently that night? When he was out, when you saw what he was doing?
I don't think I'd call it violent.
And that's just one of the reasons Houston's Pakistani community is up in arms.
Uzair was shot for no reason. I think it must be categorized as a hate crime. I mean, just because he was Muslim or he was Pakistani, he got shot and no investigation was taken seriously.
At a news conference Wednesday, the Kazi's lawyer says the body camera videos prove the police investigation was clearly biased.
They totally handled this investigation with a preconceived bias that was in favor of a retired police officer that worked for them from the beginning.
Sugar Land police announced they want the grand jury to file charges against Ozzy for misdemeanor assault. And on Channel 11, the Sugar Land police chief, who wouldn't talk to us, defended the officer's decision not to check their former colleague's alcohol level, even though he admitted to drinking right before the shooting.
You have the right to be at your home and drink alcohol.
Of course you do, Chief. I do it too. But then I don't grab a gun, walk outside, and aim it at my neighbor for the crime of simply walking across my driveway. He went and got his gun just because his neighbor Ozzy came out the door and slammed his own door and walked across the street to ring the doorbell of his neighbor once. Oh my God! That is so threatening. The chief was not asked about clearly false public statements made by Sugar Land police to their own citizens about the incident. Their own body cameras dispute their claims. But the biggest issue now may be where the struggle actually happened. Sugarland police claim it happened in the garage. But look in this very cluttered garage. There's no sign of a struggle. The place would be all torn up. And where's the blood, Chief? And even the shooter doesn't say it happened there.
No, I'm going to search my house. No? Nothing happened inside the house. It all happened down here.
For the Castle Doctrine to apply, number one, you have to be entering into a occupied habitation or structure. Ozzy was in a driveway. So unless you think it's okay to shoot someone for trespassing on your driveway, the Castle Doctrine will not apply.
What else are Sugarland police simply lying about? What they told us with this statement is that they're willing to bald-faced lie to their own citizens, because that's what they did. Imagine, these families still live right next door to each other.
It's a scary feeling all the time. All the time we feel whenever I'm coming out from outside or going somewhere, the first thing we look at it, the door that's right in front of us. Sometimes he's standing there, sometimes he has some social time going on. So it is a scary feeling constantly.
The incident has apparently traumatized the entire neighborhood. When our team went out to the area nearly 2 months after the shooting, look at this sign we found on one of the neighbors' doors. And neighbors are tight-lipped about what happened that night.
Do you know the neighbors that were involved?
No.
Okay. Do you ever see?
Never.
We saw Bart Greider in his garage just a few days after the shooting. That's where he hangs out. And there he was with more beer cans right next to him. Beer cans that make up the so-called redneck wind chimes overhead.
Justice to be done, definitely. Justice to be done. And people should not be afraid of police officer living next to them.